I'm Mark Seifter.
And I'm Linda Zayas Palmer.
And this is Arcade Mark. Welcome everyone to our next episode of Arcade Mark, GM Tools Rewards. All about different kinds of rewards today. So we'll be talking about some ideas that we had for rewards. We'll be taking all the questions and feedback from chat about rewards that you guys are interested in. And that's basically it. So let's get started with probably the most basic kind of rewards, which is experience and gold. So in any edition of like fighting-based role-playing games such as Pathfinder, Dungeons & Dragons, and a lot of others, you usually do pick up money and experience points from battles or other activities that you perform. In second edition, we changed the way that experience points work to make it really, really easy to keep track of your experience points and how much you need to level, and really, really easy to hack the XP system for your game. So let's see. The donate link is broken because it redirects to... Oh, because of the fact that the donate link is streamlabs.com/Mark Seifter, and it should be streamlabs.com/ArcaneMark because we changed the name of the stream.
Well, no, I think he's saying it redirects to /ArcaneMark, which doesn't exist. So that may still be at the Mark Seifter.
Oh, okay, that is a really useful thing to check out. 1 second, we need to make sure that the donation can work for the stream. One moment.
It may be easiest just to go down and edit the lower box.
No, but the stream should allow... Oh, here we go. This is a link to streamlabs.com/ArcaneMark. It seems like it's working for me here.
Well, then let's check the link, the URL is.
So probably the redirect is the problem.
Yeah.
So, edit panels, streamlabs.com/.
Oh, there, that just says Mark Seifter.
Yeah. So, let's submit the new panel. Okay, so I think that if you reload, it should work. And then it would go to Arcade Mark. And so, yeah, it should work now. If you, but you probably have to refresh the stream. Thanks for pointing that out, Kubets. That's really helpful. And donating directly is a good way to get slightly more XP per donation. It's mostly the same as cheering, but you don't have to pay Twitch a little bit more for the cheers. All right. Excellent. So, thanks everyone, and thanks for pointing that out. All right, back to the XP. So, I was saying that one of the reasons that we went for 1,000 XP is that it's easier to hack the XP system with 1,000 XP. By that, I mean, it basically works very similarly to the exponential XP system from Pathfinder First Edition, where monsters had an absolute amount of XP, but then the amount you need just grew exponentially, and then the amount that they gave doubled every 2 levels, thus growing exponentially. Just now what we do is every time you level up twice, monsters give half as much XP, and you always need 1,000. That means that if you want to run a slower XP game, you can just pick a number that's higher than 1,000. We talk about 1,200, but you can require 2,000. If you want to run a faster XP game, pick a number that's less than 1,000. We talk about 800. You could do 500. You can do whatever you want. And when the story changes, you can change the amount of XP it takes to level up. So, for instance, if you are one of those people who is like literally has a shrine on your wall to like the level 6 in Pathfinder First Edition and are convinced that that is still the same in Pathfinder Second Edition without playing, and you're like, level 6. I wake up every day hoping I'll get up to level 6 and then I'll never leave level 6. then you could, for instance.
I think that's a little bit of an exaggeration.
No,
of
there actually
D6.
there actually are. So you could actually just make it so you take way less time to level up to say 4 or 5. And then it just gets really, really slow starting at those levels. So then you could change like just drastically how the game works. You could say, okay, it's 500 experience to level up to 4, and then starting at 4, it takes 10,000 to level up every time after that. You can change as dramatically as you want. And you can even change based on the story. Like if the party is in sort of a really horror based survival horror, like survive on an island all alone, and you could just require a lot of XP to level up. Also possibly because you don't want to give them like water and food creation spells up the wazoo, but also to just give the feel of wow, we're barely struggling to survive. And then afterwards, you could do a high fantasy section where you've just drastically decreased the amount of XP to level up to try to catch them up overall.
To give another example of when this would be useful, when I started running my Kingmaker campaign, I started them off using the standard XP track. But I quickly realized as we got into more details, and this was around level 6 or 7, that they were going to be leveling far, far beyond what anything in the adventure expected. So not only was I needing to adjust for my PCs, I was also needing to adjust for the fact that they were levels higher and powerful.
Thanks for the cheer. Sorry about that.
No worries. So then at that point, I wanted to convert to slow XP. But doing the conversion from standard XP to slow XP entirely over the course of the level was a really long time. So I think I gave them an extra trait when they would have hit 7th level in the old system, but still it would have been really convenient to be able to just say, okay, now level ups take this much because I don't have to then get you all to this other set point.
Right. Also, like, one thing Linda glossed over there is the fact that it required a lot of math just to rejigger it to make it slightly more gradual for that level 7 transit. That was easy enough for Linda, but that many people wouldn't be able to do at all.
Yeah, well, I guess I did. I didn't just do it at level 7. I transited over level 7, 8, 9, and 10, and I proportionally allocated the XP.
That's right.
So that it would eventually end up.
Because it was just way too brutal to all have it at the same level. But the thing about that is, in 2nd edition, since it's only level by level, then all you have to do, all she would have had to do was make. She said, "Oh, I'll do it over 7, 8, 9, and 10. Sure, each of those is 1,200 or something like that." Whereas she wanted to get us back on track to the slow track.
Yeah.
Because otherwise, she would have had to do math adjustments every time. But once we got back on track to the slow track in Kingmaker, we could just follow that because it's a giant exponential curve, and you're either following one of the ones in the book or you've made your own with a giant exponential curve. Whereas with 1,000, where the exponential stuff is hidden from you in a way that you don't have to do that math based on the fact that monsters give less XP when you level up, then you don't have to do that. You just have to decide how much more than 1,000 is this level. Alright. So, maths. Yes, that's right. Night Fox, that is a way you can do it too. Like in my War for the Crown game, I just keep total track of XP and I tell people when they've gotten enough.
You also tell us.
I vaguely tell you when they're close because you guys take a while to level up and rarely do it outside of session, even if I tell you to a bunch of times. So
I usually
you're
do.
like maybe one of the only ones who sometimes does, but then since nobody else does, sometimes you're like, well, I'll do it when they're doing it because you're faster. So I sometimes say, hey guys, please have level up choices for next session because we won't start leveled up, but you will definitely level up. But yeah, I do things like Night Fox some of the times. Just it's faster, and sometimes there's no one in my group who would give themselves extra XP, and we'd figure it out anyway. But there are some who would just forget and wind up falling behind in level, and even there are some who, with me telling them when they level up, have fallen behind in level for multiple sessions because they confirmed it and then just didn't level up.
Yep.
So, It's mostly to help make sure they get everything that they deserve, and let's make sure that doesn't sound ominous. Get what you deserve, but so let's see. GM Reckless says, "I love how the proficiency system, where it taps out for various classes, makes room to do epic level style stuff later, as either homebrew or maybe eventually officially." We've definitely said on streams that we don't know what we're gonna do with Mythic, but like it could potentially be something that comes after Legendary. Who knows? That is complete speculation and something for later on once we even we need to. We've done a lot of testing. You guys have done a lot of testing too and given it back to us. And we're pretty confident that high level stuff is working out a lot more smoothly and that more groups will be able to run it without needing like a virtuoso GM, which you could still run it with a virtuoso GM in PF1. But before we go into anything that's even beyond that, we want to put it through all of its paces with, you know, a lot of people running through multiple adventure paths out to the end and letting us know how it works throughout now that adventure paths are going up to level 20. So that will be a cool thing. In every version of the game that has had weird epic level stuff, even from like true dweamers in second edition AD&D, is something that I have used. So I'm excited to think about it, but we have to make sure we have a fundamental baseline that is solid before we build up a giant tower on top of it. Let's see. So people are talking about Dimension Door. I think Dimension Door is a lot less of a complete game buster in second edition due to the fact that it's not going to go through every wall and bring the entire party too. So I think you shouldn't have to be worried about Dimension Door quite as much as you were before. But maybe you're still worried about it. There's still a lot of things you can do with it. Alright. Night Fox says 90 to 100 level characters in Bloodstone, triple exclamation mark. There you go.
Mm-hmm.
So basically, that's the way the XP system works with 1,000 XP per level, and then you just build your encounter based on how much XP you want it to be worth. Now, it is worth noting that there are sort of trivial encounters, which you still probably want to use like the most powerful form of trivial encounters every once in a while, just to show the PCs how much they can curb stomp. Also, if you have a big dungeon with a lot of rooms and possibility for enemies to reinforce each other, you probably want a fair number of those rooms to be trivial encounters to start off, because two trivial encounters that are at the top tier trivial that combine into one suddenly become a lot more interesting and could be a pretty dangerous encounter. Because then there's low threat encounters, which are called that not because they're also trivial, but because there is a threat to the party. It's just not very likely that that threat will pan out. But you still could definitely have some major things happen in a low threat encounter. It's not a low encounter, it's low threat. There's a moderate threat encounter, which used to be called high threat encounter, and kind of still is a high threat. It's just the most moderate in between the options that we have on there. It's one where your group actually seriously has a chance to lose a moderate threat encounter if their tactics are terrible or their die rolls are terrible, so they have to watch out, but they're highly favored to win in normal circumstances. Then there's severe encounters. That's like for the final boss of the dungeon. Those are pretty darn hard. In that one, you don't have to have really bad tactics or really bad die rolls, but the PCs are still favored to win by a pretty fair amount, especially with all the little tricks and consumables they might have up their sleeves. And then extreme encounters are theoretically a 50-50 chance of winning or losing for the PCs. In reality, if the PCs have all of their resources for the day, go into an extreme encounter and bust all of their consumables into it and all of the other little PC tricks that they have, they're probably slightly favored to win an extreme encounter, especially if they're super tactical, but we still don't really recommend that you ever use them unless you're really sure about it, or just the finale of the campaign and you don't mind if the campaign's finale is the PCs lose. So those are sort of the types of encounters, and the amount of experience you gain from them is based on their type. All right, let's see what kind of questions we have here.
Age of Ashes guidance for going milestone. At the very least, in the earlier process of it, it had a section similar to the first edition APs where it would say, by the time the PCs get to this thing, they should be blah level.
Wow, thanks for the gifted subs, Author US Dale. Gonna give Author US Dale the bonus XP that we always give on this channel to gifting subs.
And did you see that Kubis was saying that that they didn't automatically get XP for donation?
We know that, but we gave Kubets XP. We also manually give. The reason why is that Streamlabs weirdly has a separate tool for tracking loyalty from specific donations that does not go into this XP, but goes into its like CloudBot or something, so we can see it. When we check that, we just have to add it on. So right now, Spartan and Kubets are the ones who have used that donation, and we have given them both the XP from that.
Alright, so that's already up.
Yep. Also, my dad, randomly, but I don't think he needs XP. Alright. So, sorry, Linda, yeah, you were talking about the milestones, and let's to be clear about milestone-based systems. Not only do we highly support milestone-based systems, but Steven was all in on us just doing milestone-based systems, period. The only way we convinced him, I don't think we really convinced him, we just convinced him that everyone else agreed with this, and he's not someone who's going to just keep saying his piece when he knows that other people have made their minds completely, is that the fact that it's really, really easy to do a milestone-based system if you already have the non-milestone-based system, but it's not so easy to make your own non-milestone system. You need a game designer to do that if the system is milestone. But yeah, Steven really was in favor of it, and we made sure it worked very easily here, and you just give them the level up when you want to give them the level up. And I mean, Steven had convincing arguments for why the milestone is better in a lot of situations, and we definitely mention in the core rulebook that you can do milestone for those reasons. It's just that you guys aren't all game designers, and some of you might have wanted non-milestone, so we made sure to give you a non-milestone too. Let's see. Kubets made a donation a few minutes ago. Okay. Then let me check this out. No problem, Kubets. This is on a... Oh, yeah, you did. It just hadn't come through. That is why it was... It just hadn't loaded up. Let me get that for you right away. We had not seen it. Here it comes. There it is.
A wild XP appeared.
Boom. There it is. So Author Dale is asking, what's the recommendation for adjusting an encounter that is listed as moderate X when the party is level Y? Either one level above or below. Well, if it's listed as moderate X, you're in good shape. Here's why. You're in okay shape, potentially. If it's moderate 3 and the party's level 4, that means it's a low threat for level 4, which maybe is fine. And if they're level 2, it's a severe threat for them, which again, maybe is fine. Assuming that it's not really, really important that it stays at moderate. You're welcome, Kubets. But if you want to adjust it, you just adjust it up or down by that much. Basically, so let's think about this. So you have an encounter that's supposed to be moderate, which means it's supposedly worth, what is that, 80 XP, I believe?
Yep.
But they're one level higher, so it's really only worth 60 XP for them. So just add 20 XP, if you want to keep it at moderate, add 20 XP of things that are worth 20 XP for their level, and you've got it. Or if they're one level lower, subtract 40 XP, because it's actually worth 120, and you've got it. It's similar to what you do for a player-by-player adjustment, for adding or subtracting players.
And the player-by-player adjustments are listed on that same page that talks about how much XP the encounters are worth.
Oh, I want to announce this. Kubets has redeemed XP on We Make Night Trace a level 2 character. So, Night Trace, we're going to make you a level 2 character. And we are going to... we're going to give it to Night Trace. It's going to be a level 2 character, and your choice of being Pathfinder Society, in which case we will give it also a Scroll Spell Swords and a starting faction champion boon. And we will embarrass Night Trace by talking about this character on the stream as well, so that you guys can all see whatever it is.
Kubits, can you pick the class for us?
Oh yeah, Kubets, you can pick the class if you want, and then we will do the rest. All right. Ograx Longshanks has asked. Here's one just asked on the forums. If an item has the magic keyword, does it need to be identified? Potions and other things have this keyword as well as the usual things we identify. Well, we usually are not going too much into like rules clarifications on ambiguous rules, but I think it's pretty unambiguous that potions have always been identified in Pathfinder First Edition and in Pathfinder Second Edition, so I think that you would. However, remember, you don't need a magic spell to identify. You can use identify magic just with Arcana. Even your fighter could identify it. It's pretty cool. All right. Author USDL has a thread in the forums for rebuilding Severe 2 for a level 1 but 6-person party. That's a fun one, because if they're level 1 but 6-person party, then actually a Severe 2 is not actually as strong as or no, is it? No, actually, it may be exactly the same. It depends. There's odd even parity because of the fact that I think when you're doing moderate to severe of the next level, it actually is 50% more XP, so it does the same thing, whereas I think low to moderate is different. Okay, Kubets wants us to choose the class. We will choose the class. And we're not going to make him a potato leshy that wants to burn down the world again, because that is what Jason gave him already for his first level character, but he has a second level character boon. So
Over Longshanks, out of topic questions are perfectly welcome.
Yes,
we even have an emoji that is dedicated to us going off topic.
Yes, it's this squirrel that I just put on. It's the we just went off topic emoji, and it's a celebration. It's not a chastisement of going off topic. We do it all the time, and you'll see, all our subscribers are gonna make the squirrels. Also, we should get some more little emojis, because we have unlocked the maximum amount of emojis that a non-Twitch partner can possibly unlock by a lot. In fact, we were close to the point where if we were a Twitch partner, we would have actually unlocked the first, wow, this is good even for a partner tier, because you guys are an incredibly generous and amazing community. And there are people like Author USDL who gift subscriptions to other people.
Love you guys.
Yeah, you guys rock. Alright, so let me see. Alright. Oh, GM Reckless says Arcane Fighter. Well, we'll consider it. Alright.
I mean, it does have the same initials as Arcane Failure.
It does. So that means it might be Broken Arcane Failure, yeah.
Yes.
And that's what he said, broke Arcane Fighter. So maybe we'll make his character an Arcane Failure.
Someone who had been perhaps in school to be a wizard and that didn't quite work out.
Could be. Alright. We'll figure it out.
Many options.
There's a lot of choices. Alright, so back to rewards, although this is also about rewards, just a different kind of rewards.
Yes.
Community rewards for community building. So we've talked a lot about XP. It's flexible, it should be easy to adjust, and sometimes a 6-player group that's one level lower actually keeps the same encounters. It depends. Because the way that the stair-stepping has to work, unfortunately, just to make it so that the numbers are very balanced, is that sometimes going down a level actually takes away a third of the XP, but sometimes 50% of the XP. Like, ideally, although I think that, like, mathematically this is impossible because the square root of 2 is not a good number. Ideally, like, every level would be the square root of 2 more XP than the level before. So that you would have, say, 100 XP, then 100 root 2, then 200 XP, then 200 root 2, then 400 XP, but nobody wants to do that, so instead you'll have just a little bit of...
You don't want to be multiplying by 1.41 and yada yada
no.
yada every single
So instead
time?
you'll just have to deal with a little bit of imprecision, where sometimes being a 6-person party is exactly the same as being one level higher, and sometimes it isn't.
Mm-hmm.
Now that being said, even though that's true for the XP total, that's not true for what is a good encounter. So sometimes you get 50% more XP for. I mean, actually, always you get 50% more XP for adding 2 more characters. But even when you can get away with raising the boss monster's level by 1 and adding things, which you can on certain odd even parodies, that does not mean that you should do that. Because maybe you should add more. Maybe you should mostly add things when you have extra characters. And similarly, when you have fewer characters, it's nice to subtract things in general rather than just necessarily have a ton of things that are really, really crappy.
Yeah, so this has gotten a little bit into the weeds a bit for folks who have not intensely studied up on the XP. So what Mark just said there is more of the heart of the advice, that oftentimes when you're adding more characters, you want to add more things to the encounter rather than focusing your effort all and making the one thing harder. And this also applies because if that one thing is so difficult, then it could be something that the PCs really have trouble hitting or affecting.
Yep.
And conversely, when you reduce the number of characters, you might want to reduce the number of creatures that are on the map, because then you have less places that the PCs have to divide their attention.
And thanks for the gift subs. Thanks for the gift subs, Stryu. That's awesome. I am giving the extra XP. In fact, you know what, everybody? Sometimes Streamlabs has crapped out on giving XP, so I'm just giving everybody 30 XP now, and we'll see if that works. Everyone who's watching right now. Alright, we'll see if that happened or not.
Did everybody just get 30 XP?
Maybe, maybe not. But I told it to do that, so we'll see if it happens.
Yay!
Yay! Alright. Alright, thanks for subscribing, Chiamora. Oh, it even showed a floating 30 XP number on the screen. That's awesome. Alright, sorry for interrupting you, Linda. They were just gift subs.
No, gift subs are more important than whatever I was almost done saying.
Okay.
I think I was talking about conversely, for the action economy, when you're reducing the number of PCs to reduce the number of things that are on the battlefield.
Right, so if you have just 2 PCs and you're like, well, it was going to be 8 orc warlords, but now I'll just do 8 orc sergeants, that's still 8 orcs. And they could overwhelm the number of PCs, or the PCs could be like, whoa, those orc sergeants are actually pretty crappy compared to us. Fireball, done. Mm-hmm. So, and in the same way that a big monster, let's say you had 8 PCs, and you're like, oh yeah, I'll just throw a monster 5 levels higher than them that's still a solo, then that's the same situation as the 8 orc sergeants. Unfortunately, the orc sergeants are your PCs, so that
yes.
the 5 levels higher monster says, oh, I'll throw a max level fireball at these 8 PC sergeants, and then the PCs die.
Yep.
In one fireball. So just because you can do something with the XP system does not mean that you should. It's particularly in terms of adding characters and using one ridiculously above them. And the same goes for the opposite direction. Because, yes, that dragon might have a giant fireball, but also the PCs might use the fact that they have 8 people to harry and harass the dragon with debuffs and make it lose actions until it's stuck to the ground, but also is losing in action and is tripped, and then it can't get up to anybody. So
yes, Athos Dow. With the great power of being the GM comes the great responsibility of making sure that your encounters are fair and fun for your players.
That's right. So we talked about XP. Let's talk a little bit about treasure and gold. So treasure and gold is in any system where you don't just have sort of a mostly optional magic items economy, but is a more of an expected magic item economy. Treasure and gold are just another scale of power level increase for the group and another scale of rewards. And arguably, even in systems that are a little more optional like 5e, pretty much everyone does include a certain rate of magic item advancement. There just isn't really advice for it because it's meant to stay more optional. In Pathfinder Second Edition, we try to give you multiple different ways to hand out all that wealth. And oh wow, I actually turned to the right page. So we give you a total value to hand out to a party of 4 PCs
Page 509
by
of the core
level
rulebook.
on page 509. And then, if you want, you just do your own thing with the total value. If you'd like, we have breakdowns for how you might spend that value that we think is pretty useful to consider in terms of making sure everybody gets something cool, because it always involves at least 4 permanent items one for each of your 4 players.
And another nice thing that chart has is that it generally includes treasure items that are of a higher level than the PCs, because higher level treasure is more valuable because the PCs can't craft it themselves, and it's something that's pretty much guaranteed to be relatively useful compared to the party's level.
Absolutely. The party War for the Crown was very excited to get an Apex item, Belt of Giant Strength, from the general that they
got an
defeated.
Apex item 3 levels early. That's ridiculous.
True. Well, you guys got level 14, but and now it's on Linda's Dwarf Fighter.
Mm-hmm.
Also, we give a example of currency per extra PC in the party by treasure level, and we also say to add a permanent or consumable for extra PC if you are following our suggested treasure. Obviously, if you are using our total value, then you would just, instead of using any of that, you would just add 25% more total value.
So when you're doing total value, do you use that value to buy items, or do you consider that items might be sold?
You would generally use that value to buy items. However, we specifically say that if you look at an item and you're like, wow, obviously my 14th level PCs, when they kill these 32 hobgoblin sergeants who have +1 weapons, they're going to sell those +1 weapons. Then you immediately count them as half value. Alright, Roll for Combat says that we're crazy. But Steve,
we stream every
Saturday morning at 10 a.m. and every Tuesday and Thursday at 7. So that's our schedule. Someday, that is a schedule that is robust enough to be partner if we actually just had a few more hours worth of length on our stream, but we need to more than double our viewers before we get there.
And, Stephen, since you're very tuned into audio quality, much more of a master of it than us, if you have any advice for improving the settings that we have here,
yeah, absolutely,
we'd be happy to listen to that and try it out.
Yep, we are absolutely not audio or video quality experts. We are just 2 very excited subject matter experts on RPGs who want to get the message out. So we know that we're a pretty low tech stream. All right, we are regularly crazy. There we go. Yeah, this is the Saturday pre-War for the Crown stream. As Kubet says, we're not actually War for the Crowning this month because we have to catch up on all the things we just didn't do for a week while we were resting after Gen Con.
Mm-hmm. And Steve, this chat allows anyone to post links, so feel free to post links to anything you'd like, such as Roll for Combat.
So Ograx Longshank says sound and video are fine, don't waste your money. Thanks for that. We did actually get a gift of a really good mic, which is why the sound is fine. I know you started more recently. Alright, it's Steven says a soundbox for the mic could help with the room echo. And that might be cheaper than getting like a really big mic setup. So that sounds good. Alright. Let's see what else people were saying along the way. Kill every rat for those coins they carry. Yeah, let's not do that, Craig.
Well, rats also wouldn't give you XP because they would be a trivial encounter.
Kubets wonders, could you run Plaguestone with 3 players without rebalancing the fights? My players are pretty good at min-maxing in different games, but new at PF2. So Kubets, the thing about Plaguestone is that Jason is pretty brutal when it comes to adventures. He's brutal but fair, but brutal. So if it was the Pathfinder Society scenarios, which don't have a 3-player adjustment, even if they have a 5 and a 6, and so on, I think they could get through I think your optimizers, once they figure out PF2, could get through probably any of them. And in fact, one of our forum members, Anguish, was accidentally played Escaping the Grave on sub-tier 3, with the 3rd and 4th level character version with his 1st level group, and made it to the finale, and then they wiped hard, and we're like, wow, this is way too hard. And then later on the forum, figured out they were playing the version for third level characters, which makes me want to see if like our group's best min maxers can do that on Anguish mode, and even make it to the end like his group did, because that sounds pretty epic to even make it that far with stuff that was your first level and it's meant for third level characters.
What if you? What do you think would happen, Mark, if they took the if they took, say, the severe and extreme encounters only, and then knocked those down a peg, but left the other ones intact, and then maybe dropped some more consumables to assist the party?
Jason throws so many severe encounters at people.
Oh,
already.
well, if they're all severe encounters...
Well, he doesn't throw extreme, because you're not supposed to ever do that.
Yeah,
or
no.
if you mean the ones that are newly extreme.
The ones that are would be newly extreme, the ones that are severe.
So, a lot of things would be... Since Jason uses moderate and severe a lot, and doesn't really use low a lot, and it sort of makes sense because he has a lot of investigation, so he wants to be able to make all the combat encounters like a little punchier rather than having a giant dungeon full of tons and tons and tons of lows. But it means that Kubits would still wind up being adjusting at a fair amount of time.
So in addition to removing creatures, there's also the weak template, which could help with adjusting some of the ones if it is that single monster.
That's right. Brian asked if we used ultimate intrigue spells on War for the Crown. We have not so far, but we've been doing pretty well with just the core rulebook. We wanted to check out how that worked for intrigue and what we thought was missing. That can help if we want more intrigue spells in second edition. All right, let's see. Zathos would love more PFS content. Any idea when Plaguestone will be sanctioned?
We're working on that, but we're still we're having some discussions about sanctioning and exactly how that's going to work right now.
Yep. Author Estelle is correct that with Jason, severe 2s back-to-back are pretty common. And I heard that one group was only level 1 when they got to their first severe 2, so I guess it was extreme. Yeah, there are a lot of moderate, some severe encounters. Oh, I know, Kubets. I may not know much about the, actually, really, the Age of Ashes or any of the Adventure Path volumes, because Logan did Age of Ashes and Steven was the designer on Extinction Curse. But since Jason himself wrote Plaguestone and the other two designers were on the other APs, then I took a look at Plaguestone and did the design pass on it, and yeah, there's a lot of severes and moderates in there.
Yeah, Ogre Longshanks society scenarios being a little easy combat wise. Particularly, I can see people having that issue with the tier 1 5s and things like that. The thing is that there is a wide variety of optimization in first edition in particular, and so in order to, and this is actually something I discussed at more length in another stream rather. But in order to make sure that they are fair and accessible to the widest variety of people, we have to skew them easier than would be ideal for players who have a high degree of system mastery.
It's especially egregious in 1 to 5s because there's a mandate in 1 to 5s for PFS 1 that is, what if this 1 to 5 was the first experience of a group of completely new players who are all level 1 and don't have the Cure Light Wounds wand or anything because they've just started?
Yes.
Now, if you are a group of all second level characters who this is your dash 57, that's going to be a very different experience, and it's always going to be way too easy in the 1 to 2 sub tier. However, the new way that John figured out to make it work, and I helped a lot, but I want to give John credit for really going into the weeds with it, is will allow you to sort of adjust even within the sub tier. If your characters are all level 2, you get something a little different than if they're all level 1. So that's really exciting, and it looks like Ograx had a follow-up to what they'd posted before.
Yeah, I'm glad
that said
you like what we've
that
done
the
with
new
second
ones
edition.
are excellent and a notch above the previous iterations. The art, everything about them, kudos to you guys. I'm going to say, as someone who mostly was just there to help with the rules, but watched the brainstorming from these guys, who are on, like, the core OP team, like, they're brilliant ideas and just back and forth. Like, they are hugely invested in making the experience better for you guys and willing to think outside the box and reimagine things and say, what if we did this? What if we put all of the stat blocks in the back in a certain format? and just think about shifting the design to increase the information design of the adventure. And I think that went a long way in the end.
Yeah, and then we also had a lot of invested people who answered our surveys when we posed all these different options, and then we were able to use that survey data so that we weren't just shooting in the dark about what people would like. I think one of the most interesting ones on that was the how much longer would you be good with having a scenario be in order to accommodate the adjustments that you would like.
Infinitely longer.
And
actually, basically.
And the average result was somewhere
thanks
between.
For the cheer, Cobalt Crusader.
Yeah, the average result was somewhere between 1.5 and 2 times as long in order to accommodate things. So if you see all that extra space in the back now for art and for splitting out the stats and things like that, it was like, okay, wow, this is really a priority for people to have this information split out in a clean way over having it be a short number of pages to print.
And I've done a design pass on all of these new adventures for Pathfinder Society 2, and I'm excited about all of them. They're all really cool, and it looks like Author's Tale also likes them too, so a lot of people do.
Yay!
Exton Lamb points out that there's a lot in the scenarios for GMs to work with, which is great because some GMs are working at their skill level. The quality seems to have taken a huge jump from 1E from what I've seen, said Ogrex Longshanks, especially the art in the back is now what I would consider a premium product. So Kubets, I do design passes on all of the world guides so far, and also Plaguestone and also the Pathfinder Society scenarios. However, that means I get out of APs because Logan did Age of Ashes and Steven did Extinction Curse, although I'm now doing Extinction Curse because Steven left, but that is something we all have admitted is a lot, and that's mostly because Logan would have taken Extinction Curse, but I wanted him to take Agents of Edgewatch so that I would not have a full 6 volumes to go, because an AP is really long and it's a big commitment. So those are, and Jason, of course, you've seen him everywhere in every place on every channel, so he can't design passes. And Kubets actually typed the same thing, sort of, while we were talking about it. Yes, that is, Jason has a lot to do as the director of game design in the entire company, like, as you say, being famous and traveling to LA. Roll for Combat says PF2 Playstone is moving stunningly fast, especially combat. You know, Steven, that is something that we have noticed as well. Like, our War for the Crown game, it's near the end of Part 5 of War for the Crown. It was in PF2 all the time. It started when the playtest started, and we kept converting, which actually slowed us down. Every time there was an update, and even in between with internal updates, because everyone was NDA'd in the group. We never would have gotten close to Part 5 in any of our other APs. In the same amount of time, just roughly the year before, we're on, like, Part 2 of Iron Fang Invasion, maybe? But it just goes quicker, it rolls quicker, it runs more smoothly. And I still feel like everyone is doing some really big tactical things. And we don't even notice that it's going faster until we look and we're like, whoa, we got through a lot more.
Mm-hmm.
So...
And yeah, Kubits, listening to Roll for Combat is an excellent way to prep for Plaguestone, because when you get to see what another GM and what other tables bring to an adventure, that can provide so much inspiration for how you, as the GM, will interpret it.
Author's Tale has pointed out that while we did get from XP to PFS 2 to here, that we have squirreled.
Yes, we have indeed
certainly squirreled.
Okay, so
we were talking about
gold.
We were talking about treasure and gold.
Yeah.
So we were talking about how to distribute it, and we've given that out. And we talked about, you pointed out that getting at least some items that are above the party's level is a super exciting reward, which is also true. And just generally, we try to make magic items more of an exciting reward that's not just powerful in a way that optimizers like me know that it's powerful because it has a high bonus, but it actually does something cool and different. That's a very important part about item design that Linda's probably, like, chuckling inside because we just did
I'm chuckling outside.
And outside because we did an item design panel, like, for the rest of the company or the creative team on Thursday, and we said at the outset, we're going to keep hammering that you should put other things into it and not just bonuses.
You weren't
kidding. And then
kidding.
at the end, Linda said, you were telling the truth because you said it like 4 times.
Yeah, you were like, and we went back around to this, and remember that we need to put other things in this and not just bonuses. Don't create an item that is exactly the same as an existing item, but but strips out everything but the bonuses and make that cheaper version of the item.
Kubets has a good point about listening to professional stream that I've heard. I've seen actually a posts that are about it. They call it like the Matt Mercer dilemma, where it's like you listen to Critical Role, but then you or your GM is not Matt Mercer, and then you get a little upset because you're not as good. That can be an issue. It just depends on the situation, and it depends on the GM. Like sometimes they are just so ridiculously good that you're like, wow, how am I gonna ever do that? But some of the GMs that I've liked listening to, or professionals that I've enjoyed playing their games, are ones who ran really good games. But then when I thought back on it, I'm like, I could do everything that they did. I not necessarily think to do that, and now I will because I see what they do. But there have been some times when I played in games like that where it's like, yeah, I could run a game at this level, and this is a really famous person. I guess right now, maybe for the really famous in the sense of our tiny RPG industry, I am a more famous person. I mean, to you guys, I'm famous because you're the ones who watch the show. But I think that there are some people who are just at the next level, but there's some who you can watch who are great, but who sort of you can see what their tricks and tools are and apply them yourself.
And every GM has their own strengths and weaknesses, and there are certain things that GMs do, and in streamed games for the purpose of entertaining the audience in particular that you don't really have to worry about while you're running a game for your table. But if you think about it from the perspective of, you have your own strengths, that GM has their own strengths, but the core ideas of how they handle things, or NPCs that they make up, or ways that they think of to describe a room or to present an encounter, those things can be really great inspiration. I know when I was GMing Kingmaker, there wasn't really as much of a, hey, you can watch people playing this as there is now. But I drew a lot of inspiration from the GM section of the Paizo boards, and all the posts that were there, and put a lot of that stuff into my own game. So I think that looking at what other GMs do can be an inspiration. But if you happen to find it to be discouraging because you focus on comparing yourself to other GMs and thinking of that as a way to put yourself down, then maybe that's not such a good way to look at things for you, and maybe you want to watch plays of things that you aren't running.
Watch the worst possible GM running the game, and you're like, oh man, I can run it better than that.
Well, we've brought worst possible GM on the show a few times to be a parody of a bad GM.
Wait, wasn't I worst possible player that one time?
Oh yeah, you were worst possible player for a while.
So David points out adventures are weird though. Getting better weapons in some ways is like the joke of being rewarded for a pie eating contest with more pie. That's true. Actually, in our little Thursday meeting, we mentioned that it's usually is less of an opportunity cost to give players a new rune than it is to give them a new weapon or armor, because there's always some sunk value into their current weapon or armor, except for at the very beginning of the game. So there's a little bit of an opportunity cost, even if the new weapon or armor is super cool. Let's see. Kubit says, to be honest, it would be cool if Paizo had some one-shot streams with different GMs to see different styles too. Well, we did in the playtest. We had a fairly big variety of GMs. We were trying to have a more variety of GMs, just two of them canceled, so and were both replaced by me. So that turned two into one, who wasn't going to be on there before. But I mean, it could be interesting. The problem is that if you need somebody to be the worst, just ask Mark. Worst arcane failure, says Brian. Thanks, Brian.
I know the spirit in which you mean that. He was a pretty awesome parodically bad player in our How to Deal with Problem Players segment of one of our episodes.
Joanna points out that they actually started GMing back in the day because some of the stuff the GM did was so annoying. Joanna thought, I can do better than that. And hey, that is a reason to do things sometimes.
Mm-hmm.
It looks like Dwarven Forge had a lot of different GMs for their Dungeon of Doom. That's pretty cool. And Dennis Muldoon suggests PFS and SFS for improving GMing because you get exposed to so many different GMs and can steal good ideas from them. And that is definitely a fun way to, like, you get to see some of the best GMs you'll ever see and some of the worst GMs you'll ever see. But more for the high quality, honestly, in the organized play community. But there's some that are not.
Mm-hmm.
And you learn something from every GM, whether they're good or bad. And Kubitz would just be very interested in seeing all of our guests, Mark, Moreland, Luis, but also Eric and James, and us. Luis GMs a lot, but he GMs so much. Like he said in the interview, with different APs, he could be a fun one. Now, Steven points out that I am Mr. Infamy Points for the worst player, but I point out that the rules of the guide clearly state you need to warn us that the action earns infamy before you can hand out an infamy point. Which you did not do. Let's see. Rexaliquid says, one reason I stepped up to GM PFS was to model some GM practices I prefer. And Ogrex Longshanks points out that James Jacobs is someone who would be interesting to see. James Jacobs is a very creative person.
I played in his Temple of Elemental Evil game, and basically the idea was that whatever it said in the book that was there, and that, because it wasn't in Pathfinder, he would just convert that over to whatever its Pathfinder equivalent was. And if that was 5 CRs higher, that was 5 CRs higher. And if that meant that he was going to have an entire floor of a dungeon attack us at once in massive waves, then he was going to have an entire floor of the dungeon attack us at once in massive waves. And he not only let us bring, the most busted characters that we could build, he also gave us max hit points, and if you didn't pick an Aasimar or something like that, then you got extra points in the race builder that you could use. So my character had, DR/cold iron or something like that.
I think yours was silver.
Or
and
silver.
Rob's
was cold iron.
Rob's was cold iron because he confiscated all the party's cold iron weapons.
That's right.
He didn't want them to be able to harm him.
That's right. Yeah, no, but that was an amazing game. I still remember little bits and pieces from that section. He also used what were those cards that he was using?
I don't know.
Plot twist cards.
I wasn't in the group.
Yeah.
You just told me about it.
Yeah, he used plot twist cards, and then we would use them we would pass them out in creative ways to give ourselves extra benefits.
Looks like Steven from Roll for Combat lost a combat while playing with James, and he had them captured and put into jail and made up the rest of the story. Yeah, losing a combat can be fun. One of my favorite conceits in a Pathfinder Society scenario is at the beginning of I think it's Assault on the Impossible, where you are asked to lose a combat on purpose convincingly while getting away, so that you can sort of trick enemies into taking an item that is a divination ping, so that you can find where their hideout is. And when it comes to rewards, Joanne Catilla is wondering why a lot of items have constant effects plus a once per day ability. And that's often so that once you've used the once per day ability, there's still something cool that you have for the rest of the day. Oh, thanks for the cheer, Author's Dell. So it's a pretty good combination. It feels good because you're always getting something, and then you can sort of burst it up for something really good at a certain situation. If you imagine it just having a once per day ability, then you're not even using the item for the rest of the day. And so that's one reason why you might see them combining in a certain way.
And from the other direction, if it just has a constant effect, that would be something that you could write down in your character sheet and forget that it comes from that item. And so that item itself becomes less interesting if you're not thinking about it.
Sometimes a constant effect is okay if it's pretty creative, but I'm guessing Joanne Catilla may be talking about bonuses, which case... Linda, have we said enough times that it should also have an interesting ability?
Well, you haven't said it as much times as you said it in the item design instructional meeting.
Well, we say it about that many times in the item design rules for the Game Master Guide too.
Yep.
Make sure to have an interesting ability. All right, so that's kind of treasure and gold. Let's go into some of the more special rewards. Yeah, no worries, John. So for the special rewards, one of the ones that's used to be optional, now is sort of considered in the default, is hero points. So hero points are special little mechanic that is session by session. It was really interesting, like, on the design team, the discussions we had about where and when the hero points would accumulate and go away, and exactly what happened to the hero points, because there were ideas about, well, what if you just kept accumulating them, and we just baldly talked about different play styles, and like my own play style. I'm in like any JRPG, I'm a hoarder. I'll have all the mega elixirs, all the elixirs. I'll never use them. Maybe if I know it's the very last fight, I will use all the mega elixirs in that fight, but maybe I still won't. And that's like, if you're giving a really cool thing, you want people to be using them. So if you had accumulation of hero points that you could hoard in between, even if it had a cap, I would always hoard them up to the cap and then maybe spend it down to one less than the cap so I could still gain them.
Mm-hmm.
And a lot of players would. I think that the Mega Elixir style thing, it wouldn't be a trope on TV tropes and in other places if it weren't something that a lot of people do in games. I mean, Linda, you kind of hoard items too.
Oh yeah, totally.
So, part of making it so that you get them more easily, but then you lose them all at the end of the session, is to make you feel good about using them. About it being a thing that you have and you use, rather than a thing that you're just constantly hoarding. Like, in the adventure card game, they have changed it to have hero points that are very, very similar to the RPG, which is awesome. Mm-hmm. But you can hoard them, and I am hoarding them, and I've never spent one.
As an interesting side note, they didn't gain the inspiration for hero points from hero points. It was an instance of parallel design, but they had called it something other than hero points.
Well, they used to have die bumps, and it is something very similar.
I know, but I'm saying that they literally had like the hero points exactly as they are now. But they were calling it something different, like Victory something, or I forget exactly what it was. And then Vic saw that and was like, that's basically, you should call it Hero Points. And they're like, why? And Vic's like, because it's basically the same as Hero Points in Second Edition.
Sweet.
Fun fact that I learned at Gen Con at a panel I was on.
All right. Absolutely. So, yeah, and Jim points out getting an extra hero point was somewhat rare. I'm notoriously bad at remembering to hand them out, but I encourage my players to tell me. So, for instance, we have one player whose characters are always really conservative. He often plays a character who's a little bit cowardly. They often have maxed out Constitution scores to have as many hit points as possible. And then, just as in one battle, like, he rushed forward through a bunch of traps. He knew there were going to be more traps to go up and harry a spellcaster so he could disrupt their spells. And after that point, one of the other players said to me, he said, I can't believe I'm saying this, but I really think Han should get a hero point for that. And I said, you know what? He absolutely should. So we gave him a hero point.
And yes, the physical hero point tokens can be really helpful for reminding the GM to hand them out if you've got that pile in front of you. Oh yeah, that's physical representation. Yeah. It's satisfying to have that thing that you put in your hand and be like, hey, this is a hero point.
I really think the idea of hero points that have a special different back so you can collect them was just whoever thought of that, it's a really smart idea. Mm-hmm. Because people really seem to like them at our Gen Con booth. That was one of the products that sold out.
So we have a couple people calling for access. So when we finish hero points, should we talk about access next?
Yeah, we should talk about access and rarity after hero points before we go into like weird things like you get a keep and you get a keep. You all have a keep under your seat. So let's see. There we go. So, yeah, hero points, just in case people aren't familiar. Spend one to reroll. Spend them all to not die. So, the incentive is mostly that you spend down to one, you might as well, and then don't spend that last one, but do spend it if the session's going to end soon anyway. So it works out pretty well for a Mega Elixir hoarder like me, where I actually would spend my hero points.
Oh, Nitrace just figured out that Kubit's but a character.
Oh yeah, Nitrace is back and figured out about the thing that Kubit's did. So yes, Nitrace, Kubit's bought you a second level character that we're gonna make. You missed it. It happened, and it's gonna be interesting. Might be arcane failure. We'll have to figure it out. Alright, so, Oh yeah, it looks like Craig and Jim are now going to go after those collectible hero point coins. Well, never let it be said to campaign coins that we are not pimping their products a little bit, but I just think that they're kind of cool, and I like that I have like the collectible fungus one that's really hard to get. Where can you buy the hero coins other than Paizo.com? You're in Ograx is in Canada. I mean, they come from campaign coins in Australia. I'm not sure where the places you can get them. Oh wow, it looks like Steven killed Param down to dying 6 in one round without the chance to spend any hero points. Yikes! Alright, that is very dangerous. But you can spend it right when your dying would increase. So I think Param should have been able to save himself there, but if it was dying 6, he would have been probably saved at dying, what would have been dying 4, and then gone to dying 2 anyway, and been close to death even after that point, may have died no matter what. So, that's pretty dangerous. Anything else about hero
Triple
points?
crit. Oh my goodness.
Triple crit. Oh my gosh. Yeah. Arcane Phalor. There we go. So it's someone, yeah, it's obviously a gnome ranger who has the gnome fae feat and is uses snares. All right.
But we shouldn't. If we go with a name like that, it needs to be a nickname because this character needs to at least have some respectable name that they can use.
Or do they? Looks like Eric killed Cobalt Crusader in one shot during the delve with the double damage roll, and Cosmo came within 1 point of doing that to Fumbus, and Fumbus only didn't die because of his 1 fire resistance, because it was from fire damage.
Oh, the delve. The delve, in which you do actually face extreme encounters, because the goal is to have your character die, so you get a sticker on the map.
You face an encounter that's, like, not just extreme, but is, like, 3 levels more extreme than extreme, except for that it's just, like, a customly built, really wimpy version of a monster at that level that has mostly stats for that level, but its damage is really low, so that you can survive a little bit, realizing how inevitable your demise is. Alright, so I think we've talked about hero points. Let's talk about rarity. So rarity is not just a reward. One of the things that rarity can be for is reward, but it can also be for genre storytelling. It can be for even just making the world make sense. Like, you can be a GM who, we say in Uncommon, if the players look for it hard enough, which you can define, eventually they might find it. Your hard enough might be, oh, they asked me for it and I say yes. The important thing about an option that's uncommon is even if you let the players take it every time they ask for it immediately, the NPCs don't have it by default. So you can say, okay, well, this explains why merchants exist in the world of Golarion, because most of the NPCs do not have teleport, even if my PCs have teleport. Otherwise, why do we even have the merchants? We should just have people teleporting around with bags of holding and portable holes. So you can just tell the story, or it's like, oh yeah, maybe you let the PCs have Raise Dead and Resurrect, but these NPCs don't have it necessarily, so that's why the king never got raised, because they didn't have the PCs around with Raise Dead and Resurrect. So,
or this particular divination spell that could possibly, that if you're asking, well, why didn't the NPCs just solve this, because they have high level wizards about, then this particular divination spell being rare or uncommon could explain why the PCs are the ones who are able to use it to help solve the mystery.
And Authorsdale points out that it's a plot point if people find out the PCs have access. Absolutely, they might be hired to be like by an alternative merchant who's like, I don't want to bring my wagons over, but we know you have teleport. I'm gonna pay you my month's salary for that wagon driver to just teleport my goods over to this other place. And then when you get there, you're ambushed by the merchant's rivals or something, and you find out, oh yeah, this is not as simple as it seems. And the merchant's rivals realized there was one spot where they could steal everything really easily, because it's not a wagon, it's just in a bag of holding.
Let's see. Steven has a question.
Can a PFS characters get level 1
uncommon items from the core rules? So,
use achievement points.
So 2 things. Use achievement points to get access to uncommon items. That's one of the most common ways to do that. And also, all Pathfinder Society characters have access to the item Wayfinder, because of course they do.
And as Jim pointed out, you might be able to get access if there's an access entry in the item. So what is an access entry? If you don't have a subscriber copy of the World Guide, you have never seen an access entry yet. An access entry is an entry in a stat block that says something like access. Oh, actually, you've seen it because you've seen it in the previews of the World Guide. But it'll be like, access, you are from Osirian, or access, you're a member of the Hell Knights. And an access entry means while this thing is uncommon, it's always only in an uncommon. It's never in a rare or a unique. It's while this thing is uncommon, if the sentence, the precondition that is after the word access is true for you. I don't want to say prerequisite, but if the condition, I don't want to say condition because there are conditions in the game, but if the statement
Why
after
are we
the
running
word,
out of English? No.
Yeah, we just are. I think we figured out a word to use in the book. If the statement after the word access is true for you, that means you have access. What does it mean to have access? Well, you always have access to common options. So it's the thing that is true for common options. You have access to it. Mm-hmm. So you get all the common options, and then you also get anything that you meet the access entry to automatically. Mm-hmm. So if it says access, you are a goblin, you have access if you're a goblin. Mm-hmm. Access, you worship Shelyn, you have access if you worship Shelyn. Access, your character has 16 strength. Why do we do that? We've never done that. We shouldn't do that, but you would have access to it. Mm-hmm.
Maybe some kind of like really specific gore thing.
David, I think we did use the word criteria. I think that's what we used in World Guide. Mm-hmm. So you've come to the same conclusion that we did.
Is there an answer for Malachi's question? That's actually something that came up in
You mean Malachi?
Malachi, sorry.
Not Malachi.
Yeah, I said
Cheat cheat.
Okay.
If I make a goblin, could I just start with a horse chopper? So it's it looks like that in general you don't automatically start with it for being a goblin or a dwarf unless you have the feat that lets you start with it automatically. However, it's certainly reasonable for a GM and certainly for a horse chopper, dog slicer, or like a dwarven clan dagger to give one to your dwarf. Yeah.
And
it's
yeah.
I think it's just something that was in the playtest that actually people didn't talk about that much in the playtest, so we didn't notice, but that probably we should have come up with a different... we probably maybe should have come up with a slightly different solution for it. But yeah. We're designers, we always want a slightly different solution, and we know that it's bad for the game to constantly be changing the solutions after the game came out, so...
Mm-hmm. And that's something that actually came up in at Organized Play Team discussion late last week of how we in Organized Play would be handling things where you take an option to gain access and then retrain out of that option, and then the system doesn't have the memory of whether or not you still have the access. So we don't have a great answer for that yet, but that's something we're working on.
Kubit says if running out of English words, we can ask James Case to replace problematic words with some Japanese. Tom de Monai! Alright, when we start seeing unique items in PFS play, do you think? Well, I mean, there already are... if you mean items with the unique trait, there aren't that, but there are items that have not existed previously that are on Chronicle sheets. I've seen them on the initial releases, so...
Yeah, variant items.
Yes.
Though probably where you would see them is as the boon for a scenario, because we need the space to specify that out, unless they're unique in the sense that they're a light variant on something.
But if he means the unique trait like an artifact or something where only one of these ever exists, then that's gonna be trickier, especially in the weird mirror universe of Pathfinder Society where your whole table might have it. It's gonna be hard to justify claiming a new thing is anything more than rare, because as you might have seen in Plaguestone has a variety of monsters that were just literally created recently and are in that area. And if there's only one of them in the adventure, it's unique. But if there's three of them, even though there are no more in the world of Golarion except for those three that you may have just killed, it's listed as rare. Mm-hmm. Which weirdly, I guess, means if you kill two and let the other one run away, it might be unique at that point.
But that already happens. I mean, Night Trace points out PCs in PFS1 with intelligent items, so, and multiple people at your table have copies of Gammon the Misforged.
Yep.
Then you can run into some silly things, but that's just part of a little bit of silliness that we have to deal with in order to get the many benefits that the Organized Play program provides.
Yep, and I could definitely see I could definitely see a universe in which some year there's like a unique item auction boon that actually is unique because only the person with that auction boon gains access to it, although they still have to spend the gold pieces to buy it or something like that.
Yeah.
I mean, that happened in Pathfinder First Edition with certain auction boons that were special unique items for that boon. Double Ovnirbane party.
Mm-hmm.
I'm Armog. No, I'm Armog. Alright. There we go. And David points out this is the literal only one in existence, and having it be true could be fun. Yeah, that's more of something for an auction boon. Like the auction boons for PFS 2 actually did really well this year.
Especially that Red Mantis one.
Well, sure. Yeah. But also even the ones that weren't Red Mantis that were super special, sort of like backgrounds for your characters and nobility.
Oh, sweet.
All right. Steven has allowed us to play Roll for Comment together because before our microphone was so terrible that he didn't even put up our last episode because it just sounded like squawking birds.
To be fair, that was a microphone that you guys
have
never been exposed to.
It was a microphone that was even worse than the last microphone, which is so bad that it literally just sounded like squawking birds.
It's what we used, this ancient Logitech, for that original episode.
It was a really bad microphone.
How old even is this thing?
It is a tale as old as time.
It doesn't say.
It is one of the great old ones.
Yeah.
Alright, let's see. Yeah, it was the Black Rose and being a actual Stavian and the Red Mantis. To be fair, bag of memes, pipe, cool story, Bob.
Mm-hmm.
Alright. Yeah, it does have Lovecraftian qualities, to be sure. So, we were talking about access entries, but let's talk about access as rewards. So we're all uncommon, maybe eventually after your players look for it. I've had my players spend downtime tracking it down and using the persona system in War for the Crown to have their people research and track things down to get uncommon options. That's worked pretty well for us. Nightfox thinks it's a 10 to 15-year-old Logitech.
I think that's accurate. I believe I used this for tutoring that I did early in undergrad, which, that definitely puts it in that range. The question is, did I still have it when I was a kid?
Steven says, I will kill off your character, Mark. Okay, well, die hard and toughness it is.
Alright, that makes me feel like I need to make sure I've got a good will save in case you're confusing me.
Oh, we can see the emote, but it's like giving a bag of memes to Bob Ross. Yeah.
Oh, and maybe that's a money bag.
Maybe the bag of memes is a money bag being given to Bob Ross.
Well, it's certainly a lot of money given to charity.
That could be true.
Just digged us some dinosaur bones, but they didn't stop. They continued digging and found
that Logitech.
True facts about the age of that camera.
It's almost true, because paleontologists are the ones who dig up the dinosaur bones.
Technicalities.
You know what? My dad sometimes watches these shows, and he is, as a hobby, he does paleontology stuff, so he would be sad if we said it was archaeologists. And John Compton, who doesn't watch this, but actually was a trained archaeologist, but you said...
Arthur Stell just paid us for being technical.
Yay! Thanks, Arthur Stell. We'll be even more technical next time.
Oh no, this is not something
but rare items rare rules elements are really good for a reward because you can only find them by adventuring, by doing something special. Or you can just change them for your game. We could probably have a whole episode on using rarity and be like, oh no, these things are all common. But what's rare in my game, where magic is very subtle, is like direct blasty invisible spells.
Mm-hmm. So that sounds like a good point that we could have a whole episode where we talk about creative ways to use rarity and access in your game.
I think so.
So why don't we cut that here for this topic and add that to our poll?
Yeah, we can add that to polls later on. About more in depth with rarity, and Author Still would love that. So sounds good. But just in general, think about using rarity as a reward, because we're mostly talking about rewards today. So now let's talk about really creative rewards.
Information.
Information is a great reward, especially if it's good information. Like, don't think, oh, I'm going to give information as a reward. Here's the reward. And you give someone... Make sure it's information the PCs would be interested in.
In 4572 AR, the initial creator of this building was named Ulf Gormander. And he was named after the famous explorer, well, he is the one who the famous explorer Ulf Gormander in the future was named after. You see, Ulf Gormander was the 7th child in his family, and he grew up on a farm, and etc., etc., etc.
Yes. So, even if you think that's really interesting, the PCs are going to think something is interesting if it's some kind of secret or hint about the plot, some in-depth thing about the world that their characters are interested in learning, something that is tied to their characters.
Known for his unusual haircut.
To their character's backstory, or something that gives them an advantage. Especially, a lot of players like to have an advantage. Oh, thanks! Stephen from Roll for Combat says, oh man, I should get a quote of this, because it just seems like it just seems like a funny thing to say. This show is great, and I hate streaming shows. Says one of, like, our top streaming show people.
So, where's Linda's name in the title? So, actually, the when this show started, for the first 8 episodes or so, this was Mark's show, and I wasn't on it. So, and the name Arcane Mark is super clever, so, I mean, I don't really have something better to call it, but...
Yeah, Linda is the Arcane.
I'm happy to be the Arcane part.
We took out all the things that were, like, Mark-ass, and changed it to Arcane Mark-ass, because together we are Arcane Mark.
Yes.
Also, Leshes. And I'm going to copy paste the this show's great and I hate cheap streaming shows.
Yes, I'm happy to be the Arcane one, and I really like our title. I don't feel the need to change it just so that my name is in it. I am Arcane Failure.
That's great. So yeah, information can be a good reward. Consider that information basically is the reward for a lot of the tiers using the old research system in Pathfinder First Edition, or if we have that research system in Second Edition, same thing. But you don't want information to be the only reward. However, information can be great. Let's say you were using the First Edition research system with those thresholds, where you give like, information. Whoa, rare spell access, and then you can have a bunch of rewards that like interlace mechanical and informational, sort of all in the same.
Oh man,
place.
I'm Arcane Success. Thank
you,
GM
Linda is
Reckless.
Arcane Success. Although I don't know what the AS actually stand for.
Arcane Success, obviously.
Yeah, but actually stands for like
Arcane
how Arcane
Success.
Failure doesn't actually.
No, I think it actually stands for Arcane Success.
I think it may actually. And now you're the Leslie with the magic wand.
Yeah. Oh, and people, Ogre asked if we were married. Legally, no, but we've been together for 11 years, so...
We are,
effectively, yes.
We are officially partners as soon as we move to Washington, where that is a thing you can do. But we're not married. Maybe someday. Alright.
Mm-hmm.
That's right, domestic partners. So... Ograx Longstring says, are feats available as rewards too? So, access to feats, absolutely. If you're talking about freebie feats, you might even be able to give freebie skill feats. I've been giving them for the Persona system. Pathfinder Society 2 gives them for investing deeply into one of the schools of Skull Spell Swords. Because, I mean, you know everybody's going to pick Field Commission if there's not something good for Skull Spell Swords. Linda is typing something, but she did not click on the the box. Kubet says 11 years. Linda has some patience.
No, it's actually more that like just weddings are such this big production, and I've never feel like I have the energy and the time to actually properly plan something that would be involved enough that I would be happy with it, and I wouldn't feel like afterwards maybe it wasn't enough.
I feel like that saying Linda has some patience is making a lot of assumptions.
Mark has some patience.
and David says elope feat.
Uh-huh.
All right.
To get the story
Patient arcane failure.
Yes, Mark is patient arcane failure, but we're happy together. So that's what matters.
Jim points out the feats in Plague Stone, and yes, Jason very, very specifically made sure to offer a wide depth of cool rewards of access. But you could actually literally get feats as a reward. I mean, we tried to make a game where you can vary the feat structure and the number of feats you give for your playgroup. Like, we think that the number of feats that we handed out is right for most tables. But some tables that are really inexperienced with RPGs maybe should take fewer feats. Maybe there's too many. Maybe they don't need the skill feats. I love skill feats. I don't ever want to get rid of them, but maybe your table doesn't. Maybe your table needs twice as many. And unlike in Pathfinder First Edition, where you would not just break but destroy the game if you doubled all of the feats and didn't do major compensation for it, because it's like, oh wow, well, there's this overpowered archery feat chain, but at least it took all of my feats to get it, and it took, the only reason it takes until level 7 for most characters is that it's just that many feats deep. Now I get it twice as quickly. Pathfinder First Edition is full of things that give you stacking bonuses that you can then stack up if you got twice as many feats. We don't have that as much. So you really don't have to make as much of a change to the game. Basically, what you would probably do is just give enemies more options. You don't even necessarily have to up their numbers. Just like when you're looking at an enemy spellcaster and you're like, you know what? I'll give them steady spellcasting. I know they don't have it. They can have steady spellcasting. That's a simple, basic thing. I'm going to make sure they give them the quick recognize spell and counter spell. And no other changes. And you probably have done fine for like, with something simple like that, for handling the fact you give a faster more feats to the characters overall. You could do it as rewards. You can do it just by default. It totally works.
So Brian asked if there's a number of feats that could break the game.
I feel like that there's, even if you gave someone all of the feats that are currently in there, you obviously need to adjust the game if they had them all. But I don't think it would break the game in the same way that if you gave someone all of the feats that were in an infinite number of feats from Pathfinder 1 core rulebook, it would just break the game.
I think what you would start to, they would have extreme versatility for sure, but because they have 3 actions per round, and a lot of the class feats in particular are giving you things that you can do with your actions. You're not going to suddenly gain more actions because of it. It's not like if you had,
right.
It's not like if you had rapid shot and like multi-attack type stuff and all these kinds of things.
They would be trained in every skill because
yes.
they have all the skill trainings. If you literally give them an infinite amount, it actually would break the skill system, because I guess they would have an infinite number of lures that were all legendary.
Yeah.
And that would apply to every situation. So, but even if you give them even if you just limited it to that, is like, okay, you have an infinite number of feats, but for the feats that say you can take it multiple times, I'm going to limit how many times you take it.
Yeah.
Then I don't think you would literally break the game. You would have, whereas you definitely would in First Edition. You would have to adjust it more, for sure. You would just make enemies that were also usually, you wouldn't even necessarily have to boost their numbers that much. You would just make them also very planned and broadly skilled in a lot of areas. So that there's a lot less of a, gotcha, you didn't have acrobatics for this to the enemy, because you're like, no, I'll give the enemy some acrobatics.
Mm-hmm.
Alright, Author still says double or triple seem within the realm of reasonable. Yeah, triple is a bit much, but it's not going to break the game. Double is definitely somewhere I would go with a group that really, really wants a ton of customization. Or a variant double where it's like, okay, you get an extra class feat each time, but it's got to be for an archetype, and everybody does some archetypes. Monkey Goblin as a heritage. Yes, Monkey Goblin is a heritage.
Oh yeah, posted in the latest Paizo blog.
Wait. Actually, no. Monkey Goblin is not a heritage. Tailed Goblin and the Tree Goblin is a heritage. Monkey Goblin is an ethnicity of goblins that usually are tailed or a tree or a burrow goblins. It's a little different. Here's the thing. Heritage gives you a mechanical benefit. Ethnicities will never give you a benefit. that is mechanical, because we're not going to say every member of a certain ethnicity has certain mechanics.
Mm-hmm.
So that will allow you the maximum versatility. You want to be a frost goblin that for some reason has a tail. It's certainly not common among frost goblins, but you could.
Naytrace, can you grab the link to that blog and put it in the chat, please?
Yep. We like blogs in the chat.
Mm-hmm.
Alright, so let's see. There were a few people who were talking about things while we were... someone said, pretend the wedding is a session 0. People are talking about Kit Splashing, Plaguestone, and Age of Ashes. Or play consideration. Trish, you missed it earlier. Linda said they're still working on it. There's some ideas about moving forward with that in ways that could be different or interesting.
But you can expect to see adventures sanctioned in Second Edition.
Is there a spot for a bonus sheet on the class character
There
sheets?
is.
There's only... Not for, like, extra bonus feats as rewards. There's not... You would have to find a good space for it.
Is
let's
there?
see.
I see.
Yeah, is there? Oh, there... Or it says there is, but is there a spot for a bonus sheet?
Oh, okay.
I think there's a spot because... For certain classes that give a bonus feat. So sometimes classes do. They just say, hey, take this feat. That's normally what it's for. Alright, what else do we have here?
Steven made a Word doc with pictures of each in their background to reference during the game.
That's
is a
awesome.
super useful tool.
That's really good. The art, though. Oh, yeah. World guides actually have really amazing art, too. In fact, their layout is very interesting, and it's a little bit different than the core rulebook. Yeah, there's good art. There's dwarves. There's elves.
Oh my gosh, there's the art.
There's the monkey.
It's a pirate monkey goblin. That's cool.
And then the heritage tailed goblin is in there as well.
Yeah.
Yup. And hey, it's easier to climb and trip because you have a tail. Eleanor had a good blog from yesterday. We just had not seen it yet. There was a lot of things yesterday. Alright. Just wanted to give a shout out and thanks to our community members who have posted in the My Happy Place thread on Paizo. Oh yeah. So I haven't posted in the My Happy Place thread on Paizo, but I've definitely read it, and so has Logan at the very least, and I'm sure Jason has too. Just we all it's like that. It's just an excuse for people to post positive things. If you don't do it, people won't post positive things as much because they'll feel like, oh, well, it's not adding anything new to the conversation. Whereas people posting really negative hot takes on things are posting criticism, so that feels like it's adding something new. Alright, let's see. Poor monkey goblin born without a tail. Well, if you don't have the tailed goblin heritage, it might just mean that your tail is not quite as apt to give you mechanical benefits as some of the other monkey goblins. Or it gives you a different benefit if you have, like, the tree one.
Mm-hmm.
Alright, let's see. Pirate-tailed monkey for the win. Eldritch Knight elves from first level. Oh yeah. It's elves. They've been around for 100 years. You really think that they might not have been able to pick up a little bit of something else at an early level? They definitely have. Yep. Alright.
And yeah, it's going to be great to see all sorts of lore coming out and expanding particularly into areas that haven't had as much detail before. Like, I'm really excited to see the non-human ethnicities.
Spartan says, I want to thank you both and Paizo. You all seem to try your best and listen to the fans, give them feedback. It's much appreciated. That's just something Paizo likes to do. And it's gone up and down over the years. It's always been pretty high. It's somewhat been damped, I've noticed, on the message board somewhat, just because of all the negativity. There's, some staff members who don't post there as much. I try to be sort of like Teflon to the negativity and just think this means someone is really, really invested, and it's coming from a place of, it must be coming from a place of deep love to create that much vitriol, even if they're saying, like, death to me or something like that. And I try to not take it personally, but I can definitely see why that can lead people off. However, with things like streams, with things like Discords and other communities that are a little more curated in a way that doesn't seem like for Paizo.com, if everyone who was being negative, wasn't welcome to post there, it would seem really bad for the company to not allow criticism of the products. But with these kinds of streams, it's a good place to just talk to people who are really excited and to get more excited, because even if I try to let it not affect me when I get a death threat from fans, they're usually to the whole design team, and sometimes except Mark, which is kind of weird. But even if that happens, it really feels kind of bad, and it can curb enthusiasm. So we try to do as much as we can when it comes to feedback and direct connection with fans, and I hope we can do even more, just based on the cool ways the internet is changing the ways that people communicate with each other. The Ancient Elf is a heritage, I believe, not a feat, but it's super cool, and it's something that, you pick that, you're not a Cavern Elf, but it's really good, but you're not a Cavern Elf. Is there a way to get those PF2 posters? I'm not sure, but they're really cool. I love the movie poster that just has the style that just has the names down there like the movie poster. For comments, players want to know when the Damned Gunslinger is coming back. Well, that sounds like an interesting class archetype for Gunslinger that might be in some kind of a devil book. But you need the Gunslinger class first. Let's see. Oh, and it looks like Jim Reckless got their poster coming in.
Yeah, this is not a stream for announcements of new information about what's coming out, but there are no announcements to make on a Gunslinger class at this time.
Yep. You'll hear it when you do, but APG does not have it. Alright. And it looks like Kubets wants some pictures from GM Reckless when the poster's hung up. Night Trace says Paizo does a good job with moderation. People can be grumpy, but if they go too far, it gets handled. Paizo's moderators, the main moderators, I'm sort of like a junior moderator, are pretty top-notch, and they are not just people go on to moderate it when it gets into a problem. They really do, read and share all sorts of research and, blogs and ideas that are being created by the people who are researching into forum moderation and community building, and they're really into it. So I think that's super awesome, and it's a way to make sure the community continues going well. And I agree with Ogre Lax Longshanks that the people on the forums who post aren't always representative of the community as a whole, because of the fact that if you're upset, that moves you to post. That's how it is.
Mm-hmm.
It's always true.
And also the most engaged members of the community, for better or worse.
Yep, absolutely. Brian, it's usually more threats of violence, and those are pretty rare. I've only seen a few. Sometimes there are a lot more of threats of these persons should be fired or fired into the sun, which you might think is sort of fantasy violence, or that they're hot steaming piles of garbage, things like that. All right, so let's see. Negative comments can help build the game. Sometimes you need a refuge. I agree. Nitrace, it was great to meet you at Gen Con 2, and I know that you only were able to pass Linda when we were walking through the Omni, but at least you and I were able to stop for a little bit longer before then.
And we had the, hi, it's Nitrace moment. Yeah, well, Gen Con is always so busy. You never get the chance to hang out with as many people as you hope, but it's, it's amazing.
Steven said, from Roll for Combat, I figured out why the stream works so well. I forget that nobody can talk more than Mark about anything. Poor Linda and her tired ears. Oh, Linda can talk a while. You didn't see the episode where Linda went on this amazing 15-minute monologue about a topic that was full of details that I almost hope people could take notes, because it was going by quickly and had all sorts of really cool ideas. It just depends on what the topic is.
Yeah.
Since this is rewards in PF2, some of the PF2 rulesy stuff, I'm more likely to say things about. Some of the topics are 90% Linda. It really depends on what we're doing that day.
Yep.
The squirrel is strong with this one. I agree,
The squirrel
Brian.
is indeed strong.
Alright. So,
Cobalt Crusader attended the world building panel. I can definitely talk.
Oh, yes. She can definitely talk, and she can lead panels like nobody's business. And moderate. All right, so let's talk about some other rewards real quick.
Mm-hmm.
So, what about story rewards of just things that? So we talked about mechanical rewarding, just here's an extra feat. But what about something that's just in the story? So, we talked about information, but there is the default like, oh, here's a keep. Now get started with this keep. Brian asks, are our games at the Houston Con full yet?
No idea.
I actually don't know how they're figuring out who gets into our games at our special games at Delta H Con.
We've got flights, we've got rooms, we've got all this stuff figured out.
We've got rooms. We know
Right.
we know when the games are, but I'm not sure. I'm not sure what process they're using to be fair to everybody that allows people to decide how they're getting into the games. It's been different at a lot of different cons. Like in Iowa, when we went to Quad Cities, they used a raffle that was a charity raffle.
Mm-hmm. That was pretty awesome.
To decide who got into the games, which was I think is a pretty cool way to do it. And however the con wants to run it, that's what we'll do. But it should be fun, and we're doing Fighter Squad versus the Throne of Chaos, plus Twilight Bell, plus Unreality Incursion. What do you got?
I'm running Reaping What We Sow in Second Edition, and I'm also going to be bringing my adventure card game box and running some games of that for people.
Right.
Or rather, with people.
And David points out the princess wants to marry you. They have huge tracts of land. Could be a reward. Yes, that's sort of like getting a keep.
Mm-hmm.
Nitrace points out that the PFS specific backgrounds felt like a reward for playing. It sort of is a meta reward because it's a reward for a player and not their character. Not their character, since you've added to a different character. But yeah, those are just a really smart reward idea that Pathfinder Society people put out. I can say that because that was not my idea.
Thank you.
And those are a cool reward. Just getting a high station, even if you don't marry the prince or princess,
Mm-hmm.
and it's just like, you are now Count de Monet.
So, property, authority, acclaim also.
Yep.
I still remember the example of the PC who got free pie for the rest of his life as a reward. And like free pie for the rest of your life because you saved someone's life and they're so grateful to you. Like that's not something that is measured in gold pieces. It's measured in like that it feels good to have saved someone and to receive that sort of acknowledgement. So I suppose also this then starts to verge a bit more into player reward rather than character reward directly, but the line is blurry anyway. Just getting to feel awesome about what your character did, and having that ongoing memorial, having NPCs recognize your character wherever they go and remember the tales of their brave deeds, having them gather people who want to follow in their footsteps or be just like them, or on the converse, if you have a PC who is particularly mischievous or infamous or whatever, having people be like, oh, that's the notorious thief, you better lock your doors, things like that. Even if it's not positive acclaim, if it's recognition that's based on how the character wants to be portrayed or wants to be seen.
Oh, yeah. So, yeah, and as you were going, GM Reckless was coming up with them at about the same time, coming to a new area, people have heard of you, Bard's good at to perform a concert. Absolutely. And for Linda's character, more for the Crown, who's an artist, that came from just the growing popularity of her character's art and her rivalry with her sister, who was about functional armor, because she is a dwarf Linda's character is a dwarf whose art is her armor. And she may be playing a first level version of that character in Roll for Combat, so you guys can see Frogry Iron Tucker.
I'm trying to decide whether I want to bring that character back to life as a second edition Pathfinder Society character, or whether I want to play a druid with a Leaf Order druid with a Leshy companion.
Well, if you're from Verdant Wheel, you can eventually get a Leshy anyway.
I can get a Leshy
Frogry
anyway,
never got a Leshy.
No, Frogry never got a Leshy. If it was Frogry, I'd play more that way.
A good reward for earnings, according to Strayu, could be a guild charter from the local rulers authorizing the player character exclusive rights to traffic certain materials or goods. That's absolutely true. It all depends on what people are interested in, and you need to know what your characters are interested in and your players are interested in. in order to figure out what a good story reward is, because generally it's more of that thing that's part of their concept. And like Linda said, most characters would not think it was a reward if everyone said lock your doors whenever they came into town, but there's some characters that would. It's like, yes, I'm the notorious Phantom Thief. I will make it in through any locked door. In fact, I announce my targets ahead of time.
And then it's like, oh my gosh, we saw the calling card of the Phantom Thief. Everyone, secure your valuables, things like that. Being known for when you notice players appreciating when their character succeeds at something, or continually trying to do something, using that as the theme. Or, for example, if you hypothetically have a wizard who's constantly, in your group who's constantly asking, is there a spell book? Is there a spell book? Is there a spell book? Then you know that perhaps you should be dropping some spell books.
Okay. Steven says, play whoever you don't mind losing in death. What adventure are you running? I have done a design pass on all of these Pathfinder Society 2 adventures. I don't think any of them is that deadly.
He's probably running 103 because the reviews say that's the deadliest one.
200-dead. Dwarf Blacksmith Champion of Shellen could be fun, says Night Trace. Yup. It definitely could be an interesting situation. Linda's character was sort of vacillating,
yeah,
but
my quest isn't that deadly.
Linda's quest?
Yeah, I thought that's what you were running.
Yeah, I thought it was the quest. Linda's quest isn't that deadly,
maybe he's just typing
Maybe
it
just
up.
kidding. Anguish mode, yes. It could be anguish mode.
Well, if we run it on anguish mode, then that wouldn't technically be something that would be reported as dead.
That's
because
true.
That wouldn't be a technically legal scenario if you were just being like, oh yes, let's run everything two levels higher.
All right, sound effects 3.
He is running it in anguish mode as opposed to running it as illegal.
Oh, well, in that case, the character wouldn't be reported as dead.
Yeah.
Because it's not an official table.
Yep,
but we will come ready to play. Yeah, we'll come ready to die then, and it'll be a lot of fun. Although, I think we should be very, 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 very clear that we're doing that, because I don't want new players like Sound Effects 3 who just joined this chat to just come on to the Roll for Combat and be like, wow, this game is too hard for me. The people who made the game are dying when we're dying because we did the up a tier. But I like playing super ridiculous challenges where everyone dies as long as it's very clear that that's what we're doing.
Yes.
So, welcome Sound Effects 3. Yes, a new edition is out, and,
Oh, he's only kidding.
Oh, he's only kidding. Oh, okay. Then that's cool, too.
Well then, in that case, we will send you our fully legal society characters, because it is indeed a society.
Absolutely.
Cool.
Sansa's the only one Jim has not yet played. So, oh yeah, we can do a bonus episode of Super Hard Mode.
Oh yeah, so
man.
like regular mode and then Super Hard Mode.
That'd be cool. Yeah, that would be cool.
Psych.
Yeah, there you go. Do you mean Jinx?
Yep.
You said Psych.
Yeah, I did mean Jinx. You're supposed to know what I mean.
I said Jinx first. Now you are the one who was Jinx.
God damn it.
Alright, so, Sound Effects says that they're looking for a way to jump in and find a group. So, some of the best ways to find a group, you can either look for a group in your local area, and you might want to get in touch with your local organized play coordinators, because of the fact that your venture officer folks may be able to find you Pathfinder Society 2 groups. But there's also a lot of play online that you might be able to get right away. There are Discords for online play that you can check out. Also, a lot of them are connected to Pathfinder Society.
So when he says...
And Rex Liquid already asked if you were on Discord.
Yeah, you can join our Discord. Mark, can you post the link as you usually do? Invite.gg/arcanemark.
Oh yeah, I can post a link to our Discord. Our Discord, as far as I know, doesn't have a huge amount of games being planned on it right now. There are others that do. But just
it's still a good place to talk to
just in general, getting in contact with your venture officers, they will find you stuff. Our venture officers are amazing volunteers who just do a great job of helping everyone have fun.
Do you have an invite link for the Roll for Combat Discord?
There are over 80 tables at the Roll for Combat Discord, so you can post an invite link for that one too. There it is, discord.rollforcombat.com. Oh man, Cobalt Crusader is actually really close to Night Trace, so they might be able to team up and have a table together. That's awesome. That's super cool. Oh, and Night Fox found it through Warhorn. Warhorn's a good place to find games that are going on as well.
And in terms of finding your local coordinators, go to pathfindersociety.club and then click on coordinators, and that'll bring you to the list.
Rex Liquid says we need a looking for group channel on Arcane Mark. Yeah, I guess the reason we don't have it is we don't have a channel. That's a really good point.
Oh man, we have 130 people on our Discord now, or 131 now, I think.
Yes.
And I guess we just have this thing where our number of channels is getting too far from our number of viewers. So
yes,
we need
that's
to
right.
keep channeling them into
all right,
more
I put it in gaming. It's the first thing in gaming is LFG. Now there is an LFG channel. Haha. So if you're looking for a game or a group or whatever your G is going to stand for today, you can. All right. Kubit says playing to run Sunstone with pre-gens is a one-shot. Maybe a more difficult version of monsters, then tone them down a bit because they look more interesting to fight. Yeah, it just depends on what you want to do for the situation. Like, even skeletons and zombies, you can put some really interesting special abilities on. Alright. It looks like Spartan has a Discord RP Roll20 game soon for next month. That's super cool.
Yeah, Spartan, you're welcome to link your Discord here as well.
Yeah, there's an online org play, of course. That's one of the ones I was thinking of. And Strayu has a group nearby. That's pretty cool.
Yeah, Kubits, the quests are monthly releases.
So Strayu has a question that we've answered in some of the previous, but this is just so important, let's answer it again. If you want to set up to GM PFS at your shop as like the basically point person for that new location, basically the store liaison, there are actually two separate and different ways that you would be able to get all of the scenarios for free that you probably want to do. Either get in contact with your venture officers and see if you can become a venture agent for that store. That might take some time. Or if the store is registered with Paizo as a registered retailer, which is free and just a way for them to get free stuff, then the store will get the scenarios for free and they can give it to you as the organizer.
Yeah, they can print them out and hand
They can print them out and hand you a printed copy. So, basically being a store, we try to give our store liaison someone who's like, yeah, I'm going to set it up for new in the shop. Lots of access to cool free adventures all the time. So you absolutely... And Kubet says they're getting released every month. Quests, they're going to try to release more quests, but it is experimental, and the way that the budget for time and money goes, we never know exactly what's going to happen.
At the very least through the end of the year, and then especially with the transition coming in with John moving to the Starfinder team and needing to hire a new person and spin them up. We'll be continuing to investigate from there.
All right, nice. And an online convention game day is about to start with hundreds of tables. Wow, so it turns out that with all the help from our community, Sound Effects 3, we've gotten you a lot of possible places to get started. That is awesome. Thanks, everybody.
Yeah, so when it comes to starting in stores, too, there's also a matter of finding a store. Do you already have a store that you are looking to establish that relationship with? I find that stores generally are more likely to be happy to have you playing in them if you can show the store owner that your community is going to be helping give back and make purchases and things like that.
Strayu said they want Pathfinder games, but nobody will run it, in particular.
Yeah, we said if you decide to run PFS at a shop. So, I see. The shop wants them. Apologies, I missed the beginning of that.
The shop wants them, and it's great, and we're going to try to have the retail incentive program, which really makes shops want Pathfinders, because it says you don't have to buy Paizo stuff, just buy something at the store. And that really is it's not like you get a lot for the retail incentive program, but it's just a little bit to remind people that the stores are sort of our partners in making a welcome place for RPGs, and it just sometimes causes our community for Pathfinder Society to be one that the stores are like, oh yeah, they're always giving back, they're always part of the store's community.
And stores can also, a lot of the stores that we've played in have had small charges to play. So, for example, $1 per person. Right. Or another store that we played at was $2 per person, but then that was measured in terms of tickets that would go to the GM, and then they could use that as store credit.
100% of it converted into store credit for the GM at the store. which
Yeah.
sort of is like insuring a purchase, but also was kind of cool because the GM did have to do some extra work. Ograx Longshank says the quest that they like the quest Linda did.
I'm glad you like it.
All right.
Cool.
And Night Fox is hoping that Age of Ashes will be teen friendly. I think it will. I mean, there's some themes of slavery and other things like that, but I think teens are ready to handle those.
And as per the Pathfinder baseline, those are presented
Those
as...
are the bad guys.
Those are the bad guys that you were defeating.
If there's ever something that violates the Pathfinder baseline, it's going to tell you, give you a big warning beforehand. Kubet says that Kubet's group is really big, so a full scenario might take more than a session, but with quests, Kubets could add a bit, and it's still good for an entire session. So that's good. Oh, Spartan, you can post your Discord link here if you like.
Yeah.
Or both, like Rex Liquid said. Rocket Lettuce, Brian is playing Age of Ashes with an 8-year-old. So there you go. I think it can work out really well. There's a lot of cool things that kids would like on Age of Ashes as well.
And I wanna point something out too, that even if you're doing a Pathfinder
He has
Society
7 pets so far.
That even if you're doing a Pathfinder Society scenario, I really recommend that you check out the part of the new guide that that goes into modifying the game, creative solutions, and modifying the game for your table. Because we've given more guidance to say that yes, you can change elements of the story directly for what's appropriate for your player group. Whether that's based on player age, which it certainly can be. What's appropriate for your player age, and what's appropriate for your player's comfort level as well. So we went a lot more into guidance on that, and I recommend checking that out.
All right. Yep, and you can definitely do something like Spartan's Group, which has an age limit of 15 and up. Make your own baseline. The point of the Pathfinder baseline isn't to shake our finger at anybody and say you have to play the Pathfinder baseline. It's just to have a baseline so that you can know if you're not playing it and tell people when they join the group. So Spartan can say, hey, yeah, we're not Pathfinder baseline. We have a few differences. And the group will be like, oh, thank you. And they'll know that the rest is whatever Spartan didn't say is like the Pathfinder baseline. Whereas otherwise, you just say, oh, we're normal. And then you find out
What's
that
normal
for one group is that you have to say gosh darn, and blood is actually like pixie sticks instead of blood. And for the other group, you talk about the entrails in gory detail, and sex is done on screen or something like that. So, it's good to have a baseline. It doesn't mean you have to follow it. All right. Ooh, Ograx got the preview pack for the PF2 minis. Yeah, those are some good minis, like Mark Moreland was saying in the last episode. Some PF2 reviews are attacking baseline as why is Paizo telling us what to run? And yes, Kubets, they are not getting the point. We want you to run whatever you want to run. Yes, even if you want to run something that's totally vile, sometimes it makes sense for your group to tell that story. It can be cathartic to run something like that. It can be just something that's edgy in the way that your group loves. And we don't want to tell you you can't love the content that you want to love. We just want to have a baseline so that you know that when you're telling a new person in your group what's different. And it just makes it easier to talk about it because common sense isn't really common. And it just, everyone will assume, oh yeah, my thing is just standard until they realize that it's not. That's all it is.
Yep.
All right. So, let's see. I think that we've done a good thing talking about rewards, and hopefully that little squirrel, which I'm now going to post a squirrel for digression, has been really...
We've been squirreled for a while now.
We have, but I think it was really helpful for our new community member, Sound Effects 3, who joined in just near the end of the talking about rewards, and just said, hey, I'm new and I want to get started with the game, and you know that not just us, we are very, very welcoming to community members, and our community is too, so we knew it was going to be full of useful advice.
Oh yeah, totally. And as you said before, the squirrel is a celebration.
Yes.
It's usually a sign once we've been squirreled for a while that we probably actually finished the main topic since we haven't come up with a segue back into it.
I think we finished the episode, so first, let's say bye to YouTube, and then we'll do a reminder of a few things for Twitch.
Alrighty.
Bye, YouTube!
Bye!